Hey there, folks. So I ended off last episode saying I was going to take a look over the code, see if I found any other gotcha scenarios that were going to potentially cause problems. And I have done that. And honestly, I couldn't find anything else that was going to be an issue or potentially be an issue. However, while doing that, I did notice I have quite a substantial to-do list. As you can see here, we've got, I don't know how many entries that is, but there's quite a few there. So what I wanted to do with this episode is to go through and sort of start cleaning up my task list. Some of these I did add in while I was reviewing the code because I realized, there's other things I could do here to improve things. So with that, that's actually going to be one of the what we're going to focus on with this episode. And in here you can see we've got some AI tasks, our character base, chrono manager, heat source, player character, and a few other things. So I'm going to go through and work on these and some of the more easy tasks to get out of the way, because I don't know if this is going to be more than one episode's worth of work. So with that, actually, we're probably going to start at the bottom here looking at these and we're going to work our way up. So F core stat, set back to visible. Actually, let's move this down so we actually have some screen space here. Set back to visible anywhere. What was this for? Oh, this was for adjusting our per second tick. So, yep, we're going to just change that back to visible anywhere because we don't want that to be editable by default. So that one's done. Okay, so the next one, again, very similar. Change back to edit defaults when logic is good. Yep. So we'll do that one. Really easy to do here. Just copy and paste edit defaults and get rid of that to do. Now this is something, I'll just take a quick pause on the code changes here, or the notes, that you want to do periodically. You're going to go through, and as you've seen while I've been going through episodes, I'll throw in a to-do note because it's something that I need to address, but I don't need to address right now. And it's also something specifically to ensure you know what you need to do, or any changes that you need to have done before you do another release build, for lack of a better description, even though we're nowhere near a state where we would consider anything to be released. But okay, we got two here. That is these two. So we're going to again set those back to visible anywhere. But yeah, so where I was going with that is you want to go through and periodically just look at your task list and effectively check things off of that task list. So we didn't delete these notes. That's why they're still there. All right. So now we've got that. Reorder to save creating unneeded variable. Oh, this is one I added in here. So just as I was looking through this, you can see here we have a integer declaration. And then immediately following that, we have a condition that we could basically return out of this function and never actually use it. So we don't need that to be right there. We want it after that return condition. And that just basically means if we're hitting this condition, we're not creating this memory allocation. And I, excuse me, apologize for that. Apparently my dog decided to shake themselves right outside my office. But anyways, now we've got that one done. Let's see what's next. Add in validation check for protection. Yes, that's to ensure the stat line component is valid. So if not is valid stat line, throw error and return. So right there, you can see I had a to-do note that is now actually a little more expensive. So in here, I'd go through and evaluate. So, okay, we want to include a logger because we're going to be logging a message. So logger, get instance, add message, error level, and this is going to be a critical one because we're calling for a we're trying to use a stat line component that isn't there. So all we're going to do here is go called on character with invalid stat line. So this should never happen because a TF character should always have a stat line, but for whatever reason it may be removed. There could be a glitch in the code somewhere, something isn't being triggered properly to initialize it, things like that. So all right, so review as this is not needed due to having just reloaded the base. Oh, well, we've determined this is actually needed. So let's just uncomment this. I never actually uncommented it in that last episode we did where this was identified that we actually needed it. And I know I briefly mentioned, I think I threw a comment onto the video, but the whole reason this is actually needed, and it's something that is going to probably be addressed in the next episode, I think I even have a to-do note on it, is when an actor is spawned, so that would be our logs or something the players dropped from their inventory or anything like that, it's not actually getting spawned into the map world. It's getting spawned into the persistent world. So that's where this comes in. So this is actually needed. So next one here, convert to single line. So that would be, we'd want to, actually I'm going to do this underneath. Return, we want this to be, I'm going to remember pedmass here, so I'm going to put this brackets in there. So it's temp minus 32 times by 5 divided by 9. So temp minus 32 times by 5 divided by 9. Yeah. So that should fix this for what we need. And that's the conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So that should address that. I'm going to get rid of this to-do line. We're going to leave that code commented just in case this doesn't work for whatever reason. This should, though, because what we're doing here, we've got our value, which is our incoming temperature. We're taking 32 off that. And then we're getting its multiplier, which is 5 divided by 9. Which we've got here, and actually just for sanity's sake, make these floats. And then we're multiplying that temperature minus 32 by that factorial, or multiplier, and returning that value. So this should work for that, so we're going to leave that there. All right, add in functionality pull. No, need to wait on that. Need to wait on that one. Need to wait on that one, and that one. So this is another one that I found as I was going through and sort of looking over everything in my checking for issues. In here, when I created this complex stat state, we have a lot of else's in here. And I realized I don't need the else. So, and just to explain, so in here, it's like, okay, if the range is less than negative 0.75, we're going to return. But because we have this return, we don't need the else. And just to explain that, so I'm going to quickly remove these and then explain. Just because I know this could be a little confusing for some people, and obviously I wasn't thinking about this when I was writing this code. Well, I was, because I can see the order I put these in. So in here, I'm going to remove this to do, but let's say we have a value of 0.49 is coming in as our range. Actually, I'm going to say negative 0.49. So if it's less than negative 0.75, well, it's not. So we don't hit this. So now we're going to check, is it less than negative 0.5? Well, it's not. Is it less than negative 0.25? Yes, it is. So we're going to return 2. Because the else is if this condition is met. Otherwise, if this condition... and the way the else works, so we've got if this, otherwise if the first condition failed and the second one is true, go to this. Otherwise, in this case, it would be the third one. The way these are organized, I don't need the else. So, and we'll take the inverse of that. We're going to change it to a positive 0.49. So is it less than negative 0.75? No. Is it less than negative 0.5? No. Is it less than negative 0.25? No. Is it greater than 0.75? No. Is it greater than 0.5? No. Is it greater than 0.25? Yes. We're going to return 4. So those else, the short of it is those else parts weren't needed there because we didn't need this giant else if. So fix that one. Move these adjustment values to a variable. What are these? Okay, so this was again something else I noticed while I was going through looking over the code and trying to do a quick review of what I was wanting to achieve. And that is in here, and we've got this for actually, I think it's almost all of our complex needs. We've got these static variables. Now, I wanted to cover this one. I'm not 100% sure if I'm actually going to do this because my intent is complex needs is only ever going to be on the player character. It's not going to be on, excuse me, it's not going to be on any NPCs. So realistically, these values don't need to be expansively editable. It's a word that doesn't make sense in my brain. But for the purpose of balancing and making the ease for being able to balance these, you sort of want these to be available in the editor. And that's the problem here. These aren't. They're hard-coded effectively. So I'm still going to... Actually, I'm going to add this to these. I'm still going to think about these 2, or 4, I should say, because there's 4 of these. I'm not 100% sure if I want to make these a variable that is exposed in the editor. I'm going to say it that way so that I'm not tongue-tying myself on these. But that's something you should think about as well. When you're looking at your code, you're seeing, okay, do I need this to be something that we can adjust within the editor for ease of testing and balancing and things like that? Because as they stand right now, to make any change there, we would need to completely recompile. Not completely. We need to build a fresh, make the change, rebuild it, make the change, rebuild it. So that's that one there. So now in here, we've got a couple of handle error logging. Let's see. So do we have logger exposed? We do. All right. So these are some older notes. I just never added in the logging. So it's going to be logger get instance, add message, error level. These are going to be warnings. And actually, for the purpose here, because I got a couple of these, I'm going to just actually can't copy paste that because I'm going to use it. Actually, I'm going to quickly throw that into Notepad++. And for anyone who slowed the video down, what was just on my screen there is some notes I've got for future episodes. However, I'm just going to, like I say, paste that in there. So same as our other error messages, invalid owner or out of range index. All right, and then we can get rid of this to do. Yeah, that's all I wanted to do there, was add in that log message before we returned. Okay, so the next one Actually, it's the exact same message. So, excuse me, we can copy this one and just change over that function. All right, and then this last one, exact same thing. So copy and paste that. Now, I understand this episode really isn't sort of advancing the project, well, pretty much at all, in terms of adding in new code or anything like that. But as I've mentioned, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to implement the handheld items. So, excuse me, that'll be things like if they're a weapon, or if the player can hold a glass jar to scoop up water and things like that. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to do that, just simply because that's actually probably the most complex part of an equipment system. Because it's like, okay, well, now you've got actors that they themselves have their own functionality that needs to be executed. So either way, now that's one. Add log entry. What's this one here? U inventory. Okay, yeah, this was catching that issue there as well. So this particular one actually requires a little refactoring, because what we had here is, excuse me, I'm gonna have a frog in my throat today. We had a null pointer check, and we were saying if it's not a null pointer, we're going to assign it. Well, now because I'm thinking add the logging in there, copy my log error message there. What we want to do is actually return, because we don't want to do any of the code below it if it is a null pointer. So copy our function in here, paste that, invalid owner. Simple as that one. Okay, we're making a pretty good dent in this. We're about 2/3 of the way through. Okay, so this one here in the inventory component, this is another one I'm going to be leaving for now. An inventory component, in my personal opinion, should not tick. The reason being, an inventory component is literally just an indicator that whatever actor this component is attached to has storage capability. That's all an inventory component is. As for the need, excuse me. So, anyways, what I was saying is, if you're wanting to have an inventory that you need to process, okay, it's like food going bad, or is anything like that happening, what I would suggest, and that's what this note I've got here is remove the tick, create a 1 second event function. So basically that's a timer that goes off every second, that we have a variable on the actual inventory component that you can say concerned about, or it would be like b tick contents or something like that. So a Boolean. And if that's set to true as part of the begin play activity here, we go through and say, okay, we've got that, so we need to create this timer function that repeats on a loop every second. And then that removes this particular inventory component from, as I mentioned in a previous episode, the tick stack completely. It's not there at all. And then we only add it to the timer stack if and when it needs to be. And then from there, you would have a function that would be like, okay, process contents, and it would just literally do a for auto loop. You'd add a function to your item base that is tick contents. And you can add an override as things are needed. So this is another one, though, I'm going to leave for now, because I think this needs its own episode. So all right, so this is what I was mentioning before about the spawned actors being created in the persistent world versus the specifically loaded map. I'd also mentioned I wanted to add in a helper function to pass through spawning so that there's one place that controls all of it. This is another one I'm going to leave for its own individual episode. But what it'll be is this logic in here is going to get created or moved to a helper function that, as per the comment, ideally it's going to be in the game instance, just because the game instance has information about the currently loaded level and things like that. So, but again, we're going to move that into, well, leave that for its own episode. Now, these next two are ones we're actually going to have to skip and come back to a little later on. Actually, looking at the time, that might be next episode. So I'm going to skip over these quickly. Player character. Okay, so this is something I noticed from when we were doing our save game testing. Is when we were reloading the game while looking at a interactable object, that text stayed on the screen even though it shouldn't. Very quick way to fix that is just as part of our update from save, we say update our interaction text. So that's that one there. And then this one, actually a pretty simple one. It's create a set perspective function. And this is, again, just because I'd noticed in, I can't remember if it was episode 96 or 97, there was an issue where our camera perspective was not being saved. Or sorry, reset when we changed our game state. So what we're going to do there is just quickly add this function in. And it's going to be player character. It is going to be a private function. Let me find where we want that there. Void update camera perspective. Active. Simple as that. Let this eventually, there we go. Okay, and now we're just going to, where's our toggle perspective function here? So we just need to copy this section here. And then we're up the top, is it? Yeah. And we're not wanting to set any functionality, set this be in first person. We are just reading that and applying the logic based on what that state is. So we're going to grab this and then go to our update from save, and we're going to add this new function here as well. And again, this is just so after a game has been reloaded, we're saving our camera perspective state and reapplying it. So, all right, so get rid of that one there. Consume fuel logic, we're going to leave that one. Merge these two returns. So, excuse me. So, what this is here, and I've left this in because this is actually incorrect. There's a reason why these are separate, but I left this in because this is something I did that was a goof that you yourself may do. So in here, as you can see, we've got, okay, if it's not active, we're returning. And then immediately below that, we have, if there's no actors in range, we're returning. But right here, we have our own note that is to do consume fuel logic goes here. And the reason why we do not want to do this is if we merge those two, a fire would burn indefinitely unless there was actors within range. And we don't want that. We want a fire to actually burn out. So what we're going to do for that is leave this exactly as it is, and I've just removed that to do comment. And what I'm actually going to do as well for future me is these two returns are in, not returned, returns are intentionally separate due to fuel consumption consumption logic requirements. So again, this is the whole reason why I left that to do comment in there, is I wanted to explain these are some of the comments you may want to add as you're going through your code, because I didn't add that in there. And I went, oh, we've got a return here and return here. We can merge them. Completely ignoring that I have my own little note here saying consume fuel logic. So if you're in a situation like that where you have what could potentially be some code that gets refactored out that needs to be there, you want to add a comment like this, where it's like, okay, these are intentionally separate due to fuel consumption logic requirements. So now that's done. Call to remove self from tick stack. Yes. Okay, I'm just double checking on here. No, we don't want that. No, if... No, we do want that. So, this dot tick, what is it? Set actor tick enabled equals false. And the whole reason for this is this is going to remove the actor from the tick stack. I mentioned this in previous episodes, 96, I believe, might have been 97. Actors on the tick stack, basically it's a huge list, and every frame that list is processed, and this function is called as part of the this for loop on that list. And that's where you'll see in the comments that Epic auto generates, it's like called every frame. Well, the smaller you can keep that tick stack list, the quicker and the better frame rate you get. So if we hit this section where it's like, okay, we're calling tick, but we don't need to. So, because if we're not using the day-night cycle, it means none of this is important. We're not using time of day or anything like that. We can just say, okay, stop trying to tick. So that's what that one is there. World temp tick rate changes 15 to a variable. Minute length equals that. Time decay, the minute length. Trying to think how I want to change that, because I understand what I was saying here. So what we're saying is allow the chrono manager actor that's in the level to have a dynamic tick rate. Trying to think what I would want that to be. So let's go here, go to definition just for the easy to find, and then we want to go U property edit. I don't know if I want to say edit defaults only. No, edit anywhere, because that allows you to edit it in the level as well as in the blueprint class itself. A blueprint read only. Meta equals allow private access equals true. Float, or do I want this to float as an integer? No, this will be an integer. Game minutes. No. Temperature tick rate equals 15. I'm going to do that there. I'm going to copy this. And then because this is potentially confusing to anyone that may be working on this in the future, you want to add a tooltip. Trying to think where I've got that stat line component has it. I know that much. So let's just grab that. Tooltip equals, and that is part of the meta. Okay. So go down here. Number of in-game minutes between temperature at your updates. So because we had hard-coded 15 initially and that was working, that's why I've got this defaulting to 15. So that's that one there. Now, this is the one where, well, actually at this point, this is actually going to have to be a two-parter because as you can see, we're here. We've still got a few more to go. And some of these are a little more expansive than a quick 30-second fix. So I'm going to end the episode here. This is going to be a two-parter. And next episode, we're going to finish off cleaning up our to-do list as best we can. So, as always, folks, thank you for watching. I understand this episode isn't as involved as some of the other ones, so apologies for that. Next episode is going to be the same, but these are things that do need to get done. But again, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below or hop over onto the Discord. Excuse me. And I'll happily respond to you there as soon as I can. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.